program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. As an empowered individual,
Pharmacist Ben.
Hello there, Mr. AJ.
You know, I don't know about you, but when I hear that music come on,
I just can't.
Because I know it's time to talk to Pharmacist Ben, and we're gonna get some good knowledge going, and the people are gonna enjoy it. So I get kind of excited about that.
I'm all about it. Oh my God, I can hardly wait till Monday at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. Serious. I mean, I count the hours. As the day goes by, I count the minutes. I do. I'm like, I want to see AJ and all my peeps.
All right. Well,
all my peeps.
The sarcasm's rich tonight. Well, everybody, welcome, and we are on with Pharmacist Ben. I do see. Okay, so we got some people on YouTube. I can't see if anybody is on with us yet on Rumble. Let's see. We do have some people on Rumble. Fantastic. All right. So we are live. Welcome. You know, Pharmacist Ben, I just wanted to start off with a question that might get in your craw a bit. You know, we were talking about, and Becca Dukes is with us. We were talking a little earlier about a meme that I kind of see on Facebook a lot. And I actually sent it to Becca Dukes because, you know, we kind of talk about her eating habits often on this show. Okay. And she mentioned that she is focusing more on meat protein for food. And, you know, there's this meme that comes across all the time on Facebook where this guy T. Colin Campbell is talking about his China project where he did.
It's not his China. No. It's not his China project. That's not correct. So what? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue. And I'll tell you what the deal is.
You know what? Yeah. Okay, so yes, so I guess he read the study.
He interpreted it. He interpreted
the study.
Yeah, but a lot of people interpreted the study, not just him. He happens to be a very radical vegetarian type of nutritionist guy, and so he interpreted it his way. And he wrote a book on it. But there's a lot of people who interpreted it differently. That's first of all. So that's his interpretation. It's not his study. It's technically the China Cornell Oxford project. China Cornell.
Absolutely.
Oxford. That's the official name of it. T. Colin Campbell he's a vegetarian. You know how vegetarians can be, and he wanted to show that that he's right. He interpreted a certain way, but other people, including people who I love and I trust way more than I trust T. Colin Campbell, including Chris Masterjohn, who's absolutely brilliant, probably the most brilliant nutritionist out there. Chris Masterjohn, he interpreted differently. Mike Leeds, who's a physician who's written numerous books on protein, had a different interpretation of it. I have a different interpretation of it. I'll tell you about it here in a second. So T. Colin Campbell has his own interpretation, fine, but it's not like, he wrote the book on it. He wrote a book on it, so everybody thinks it's his study and he came up with the results, blah, blah, blah. No, he interpreted the results just like other nutritionists interpreted the results, and he came up with his conclusions, and Chris Masterjohn and Michael Eads and Lauren Cordain and Stephen Gannett and, you know, a lot of other people, they interpreted it differently. You know, they found that according to, for example, and I'm just going by memory here, Denise Minger, she found that that animal protein negatively associated with disease, and that plant foods positively correlated with disease. So everybody has
from the same study.
Same study. You know, look, here's the problem with epidemiological studies. First, this is why I have a problem. It's not above and beyond the fact that other people drew different conclusions than T. Colin Campbell. When you do an epidemiological study, epidemiology is a very important word. It's a big word, so people tend to not want to think about it, but it's a very important word to understand when it comes to studies. An epidemiological study versus an empirical study. Empirical is when you have evidence. You can see things. You can see the mitochondria. You can see the cell. You can see the petri dish. You can see what's happening. In epidemiological studies, I just go to AJ and I say, AJ, what'd you eat for breakfast? And you say, well, I think I had eggs and I had some potatoes and then I had some milk. And then they say, oh, AJ had a heart attack. It was the eggs and it was the potatoes and it was the milk and it was the potatoes that caused his heart attack, because obviously he ate eggs and potatoes and milk and he had a heart attack. So obviously it was the eggs and the potatoes and the milk. Epidemiological studies draw conclusions based on questions and answers. So with the China study, so-called, they found, according to T. Colin Campbell, go by his results or his interpretation, he found that if you ate animal food, people ate animal food had more heart attacks than people who ate plant food. Okay, so that's very simplistic. But the problem is maybe the people who ate animal food had a more sedentary lifestyle. Maybe the people who had animal food were frying their animal food in oils. Maybe the people who ate animal food were living in the cities where there was air pollution and there was a lot of stress. Maybe the people who had plant protein were living on rice, were living in rural areas, they were farming, so they were exercising and they were moving their lymph. We don't know all the variables. This is the problem with epidemiology. You have to cherry pick variables, and you miss a bunch of them. How do we know? Did they select for ages? Did they select for smokers? Did they select for exercisers? You know, they select for mothers who had children versus mothers who didn't have children. There's all of these variables that need to be accounted for. And when you do an epidemiological study, you can only practically test for a few variables. And so I have a problem with those. And that's on top of the fact that T. Colin Campbell's conclusions are not accepted by everybody, including a lot of people who I think are really, really great and intelligent nutritionists. Like I said, Chris Masterjohn is probably the most brilliant nutritionist that's out there talking about nutrition. Absolutely. He knows. You think I know a lot of stuff? This guy knows way more than I ever know.
Well, he's saying that in his lab research, he exposed rats to aflatoxin, and then
say that again. I lost you for again.
He said in his animal studies, he fed rats aflatoxin.
Yeah, that's another thing he did. This is not the China study, by the way. This is a different thing.
And then he said that their diets that consisted either 20% or 5% protein, and the protein he used was casein. Right. And then he said,
but wait a minute, stop right there. So he took rats and he fed them casein, either 5% or 20%.
First he fed them the carcinogen, right? Right.
And some rats got casein 5%, some got 20%, and he found that the ones who got the 20 were sicker than the ones who got the 5.
Yes.
And therefore he concluded that drinking milk is a problem.
Yes.
By that. It's idiocy. Milk is just a small amount of casein. He was feeding these animals, these rats, concentrated casein. And he's trying to draw a conclusion from rats that were fed concentrated casein about milk. Now, I'm not a big defender of any of these foods, but I'm just saying the conclusions he drew were sneaky. And I don't know this for a fact, but I believe he did it to prove a point. And that's sneaky. That's not fair. You know, because you can't draw a conclusion from 5% casein and 20% casein to milk. Milk has casein in it, that's true, but he was giving the animals casein, straight casein. You can't draw that conclusion. That's the problem with these kinds of studies. That's why I like to see mechanisms. I like to see empiricism. Even then, I just want every individual is going to be different. If you're a vegetarian, where are you getting your collagen from? Where are you getting your vitamins? Let's say your essential amino acids from? Probably from beans, right? Where are you getting your taurine from? Taurine's only found in animal foods. Where are you getting your cholesterol? Well, cholesterol is probably not a big deal, but where are you getting your taurine from? There are things in animal foods that aren't in plant foods, and vice versa. Human beings are omnivores. We eat everything, and everything is important. There are vegetables that are big problems for people. Beans are a huge problem for people. So for vegetarians, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian. I get my protein from beans," and they're breaking out all over the place. It's terrible acne, or they'll have female health problems. See, neither vegetables or animal foods can be blanketed as benign or problematic. On the other hand, animal foods tend to be more complex. They're a little more complicated than plant foods. I'm not buying Campbell's, and I'm not the only one, but I'm not buying Campbell's results.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you are consuming animal protein, would it be a good idea to use the ultimate enzymes?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Animal protein is a little harder to process than plant protein, but plant protein has lectin, or plant foods have lectins in them. So I don't know. I find that hard to believe. Vitamin A is another one, by the way. Vitamin A is an animal nutrient. And vitamin A, yeah, there's no vitamin A in plants. There's beta carotene in plants, which gets turned into vitamin A, and there's probably retinoid-like substances, but there's no vitamin A in plants.
So, so what do you say about the meme floating around? I put in
read the study. Don't go by T. Colin Campbell. Read the study yourself.
I was going to say I put in the description that you're going to say that we need to be critical thinkers as opposed to just
thinkers. Absolutely. If you're vegetarian, make sure you're getting your taurine. Make sure you're getting your vitamin A. Make sure you're getting creatine. That's another thing. Creatine is found in animal foods. It's not in plants. Vitamin D3. You can make your vitamin D, but that's not as big a deal. But it's definitely vitamin A and taurine are big problems, and creatine. Carnosine, that's another one, although you can make some of that. Vitamin B12 is only found in animal foods, although bacteria make vitamin B12, and then the bacteria contribute it to the plants. But if your plants have pesticides or antimicrobial toxins on them, you're not going to get the vitamin B12 either. So it's really naive and simple-minded to say, "Oh, plants are good and meat is bad." Does that help? Does that explain? That's why I just get mad at that in particular. Colin Campbell, because he's a vegetarian and he really wants to prove a point. That kind of made me mad when I read that. And the book came out in 2010, I think. And I remember when it came out, and I had my radio show then, and I was getting a lot of questions about it, and it just ticked me off because people are naive. They don't critically think, And so T. Colin Campbell writes a book about it, and all of a sudden it's all over Facebook. And so people say, "Oh."
I don't know if it was for that particular work or for something else, but apparently someone nominated him for a Nobel Prize.
Maybe anybody can get nominated for a Nobel Prize. I was thinking of nominating you for a Nobel Prize, actually.
And I would certainly, when I won, I would offer it to you.
Give credit to all of us. You give credit to all of us.
I would definitely give it to you.
But I'm not going to lie. I did send a nomination out for you. if you hear from the Nobel Committee, that's me.
It was like AJ, we got something for you.
Nobel Prize
in our holistic health course. And if anyone wants to know more about the holistic health course, Becca can tell you. It's our coach with IWH.com. And if you want more information on that, wow, I didn't even have our frame up, Pharmacist Ben. You should have told me. If you want more information about that, call the number that's on the screen, and you can get more information on our holistic health coach, or go to coachwithiwh.com. But if you call this number, we'll give you a discount code to make it even more affordable to become a certified holistic health coach. Or if you just need some help and you weren't able to talk to Pharmacist Ben live on the show, call the number that you see on the screen. But in the we have a chat. There's a couple hundred coaches in the chat, and
there are right now. There's a couple hundred coaches in the chat.
In our health coaching chat,
okay. Right.
And a woman named Denise mentioned that our EFAs have flaxseed oil, and the question is, flax can have estrogenic effects, which can mess with hormones. So why is it in our
so first of all, flaxseed plants that are phytoestrogenic, and there are components in flax called lignans that have estrogenic effects, are weak estrogens, or have weak estrogenic effects, as opposed to strong estrogenic effects. A strong estrogenic effects, a molecule with a strong estrogenic effect sits on the receptor tightly and causes estrogenic effects, causes estrogenic results, growth, cell division, secretions, accumulation of liquid water. There's various things that estrogen does. Weak estrogen binders take up the space, but they don't allow estrogen, which is strong, the hormone or xenoestrogens, to bind to the receptor. They block the receptor, giving it a weakly estrogenic effect. They're said to be weak estrogenic binders or ligands. Weak. You understand what I'm saying? The weakness has a protective effect from the strong estrogenic binders, which makes them net good for people who have estrogenic issues, including cancers. That's what a weak estrogenic binder does. Do you follow what I'm saying here? Yes,
yeah.
It has estrogen effects, or estrogen binding properties, binds the estrogen receptors, but weakly. And they're said to be weak estrogenic binders, or weak, how they say it, but it's weak as opposed to strong. And that weakness makes it protective from the strong estrogenic molecules, right? So yes, it does bind to estrogen receptors. It does trigger estrogenic activity, but weakly, as opposed to the estrogen or catechol estrogens or foreign estrogens, like in plastics and such.
Okay, but the word that I'm concerned about, it says can mess with hormones.
Well, she's not a nutritionist. Nobody ever says that. No nutritionist ever says can mess with hormones. That's the layperson thing. It doesn't mess with hormones. I think in nutrition you don't hear mess with, right? What does that mean, mess with? She's speaking colloquially. She's not a chemist or scientist, so she's speaking colloquially. It doesn't mess with anything. How does estrogen work? How do steroid hormones work, like estrogen? They bind to a cell receptor, and then they act internally in the cell. And the most important molecules that do that are literally the hormones estrogen. But lots of things do that. Molecules in plastics can do that. Birth control pills can do that. The estrogen in birth control pills can do that. There are cosmetic preservatives and cosmetic ingredients, sunscreens can do that. A lot of things that will have that kind of effect. In nature, legumes are notorious for having that effect. And nuts and seeds can have that effect. And flax seeds are one of the more estrogen effective molecules. And it's lignans. They're called lignans. They're molecules in the flax. And they will interact with estrogen receptors in a protective way. You understand what I'm saying? They call them selective estrogen modulation. So, because they're weaker, they can act as a weak estrogen mimic when estrogen's low. And They can act like an estrogen blocker when estrogen's high. It makes sense? You follow me?
I'm listening.
Are you there?
I'm listening.
Does that make sense? I'm using it.
Yeah.
I can't see anybody else. I'm using it.
Yes,
So,
it makes sense.
okay, so when we say mess with, I don't know what that means, mess with, but yes, they will interact with estrogen receptors and estrogen chemistry, but not in a bad way.
Okay. So how about this? How about this question? Because what the inference is that in some way our EFAs are not good for women.
Yeah, I've been saying that for years. REFAs kill women. Women drop dead all the time from taking REFA. I've seen this all the time. It's been in the papers. Woman takes EFA from longevity, drops dead. Haven't you seen that? I've been reading a lot about that. Women,
I never saw
masses
that
of women in New York. I've read in New York City. Masses of women in New York City are dying, dropping dead from taking EFA supplements from longevity.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay.
I mean, I'm only responding to that sarcastically because it's so silly. But yeah, I mean, come on, really?
Okay. So just on the flip side, however, what about if a woman is dealing with these kind of xenoestrogens or like super estrogens, is the
Flax
EFA
will be protective?
could
I want that mechanism. I want that mechanism to make sense to you. How a weak remember plug and socket. This is very simplistic because it's a little more complicated than that. But plug and socket. Here's estrogen. It's a plug. Here's your socket on the cell. Estrogen, real estrogen, and there's bunches of different ones, hits the receptor and an action happens. Right? Mm-hmm. Too much estrogen from cosmetics or plastics or drugs or hormone replacement or whatever, and you have lots of this effect, right? And that can be a problem because estrogen makes things grow, and this is where fibroids come from, cysts come from, cancers come from, tumors, etc. Flax lignans, they will sit on the estrogen receptor, but weakly. So now estrogen comes, and it can't get there. It's blocking estrogen. So if you have too much estrogen, it's actually going to reduce the estrogenic effects. On the other hand, if you don't have a lot of estrogen, the lignans are going to give you a little bit of an estrogenic effect. So you get both, which makes it perfect.
And I wanted to ask you that in particular because I've heard you on numerous occasions talk about eating flax seeds in a whole as a breakfast type of food. I kind of heard you.
It's amazing for protein, vitamin E, fiber, magnesium, omega fats. You get as much protein in a couple tablespoons of flax seeds as you get in an egg or maybe even 2 eggs. And it's filling for breakfast and it's easy. No dishes. You press the coffee grinder, grind the flax seed, put it in a cup. I like cold water. Some people like warm water. Put a little honey or a little stevia, cinnamon, clove. Tastes great. It'll fill you up for hours. Great for weight loss.
And I've heard you talk about the flax seeds in relation to the TMR shakes. Kind of like,
I don't remember that.
Maybe you say you would talk about filling. Maybe you're talking about
TMR shake is that TMR shake. I'm telling you, with almond milk, chocolate TMR shake with almond milk and coconut milk. Oh my God. And a banana, an egg. It is so delicious. It's like dessert. And it's got all your nutritional value. It's so filling. And I asked Stan, Stan Dennison makes it. I was like, Stan, how come it tastes so good? And he's like, well, he's like heaven and high. He wouldn't tell me how he does it. There's he does some, but I read the ingredients. I know he's doing it. But it's so good, man. Holy cow.
Excellent. All right. So In It Together Health is asking us, and In It Together Health, tell us your real name. Can you talk a little bit about Barrett's esophagus and what YGY has in regards to health?
Yeah. So have you heard of Barrett's esophagus?
I have actually. We even discussed it once on this show.
Have you and I did, or you did on the
We
show?
have talked about that. If not, it was Doc, but I'm pretty sure it was you and I.
Let me tell you, it's one of the most awful, awful, awful conditions a human being can have. It increases your risk of cancer, of esophageal cancer, which is a very deadly cancer. It's basically a damage to the cells that line the esophagus as a result of exposure to acid and bile. And over time, it happens over the course of time. There are people that have this. Have you ever had acid reflux?
I've not, but you've talked about this, the flap.
Yeah. Have you ever had? Yes, it's a flap. It's a sphincter.
Sphincter.
Yeah. So have you ever had heartburn, or not heartburn, reflux?
Have I ever had
reflux?
I
You would
may
know.
have.
You would know, because it is the most miserable.
I've burped before.
No burp. I'm not talking burp. I'm talking tasting this stuff in your mouth. It comes up.
Yeah, I may have had that once.
I've had it like probably 5 or 6 times in my life, maybe a handful of times. It is so awful. But there are people who have it all the time. They have it like daily, regularly.
Becca said that Stan Dennison had it.
Did he? I didn't know that. He had Barrett's esophagus?
Yeah.
All right, so let me explain this thing. So when the splashback, when the bile and the acid splash up, they're caustic, and it's hard to tell you. It's hard to describe the awfulness of this substance when you taste it. It's just, I still can. It's hot. It's like tasting a furnace. It's acid, and over the course of time, it damages the cells of the esophagus, and that damage, when the cells get damaged enough, it causes this condition called Barrett's esophagus, and ultimately it can lead to esophageal cancer, which is one of the most deadly of all cancers.
Why is esophageal worse than an organ cancer?
Because it's virulence, it's deadliness. It's one of the most deadly of all the cancers, is esophageal cancer. So the person asked about if we have longevity products. Yes, there are longevity products, but not for Barrett's esophagus, but for the digestive system, for acid reflux, for GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. The most important thing is to avoid certain foods that loosen the flap. Processed foods, sugar, carbohydrates, they have a loosening effect. For some people, caffeine does it, chocolate. You have to see what kind of your battles are, but typically it's going to be refined foods, cereal grains. You want to avoid all that, and then also use, believe it or not, supplements that support stomach acid, because stomach acid helps close that sphincter. So this condition is a sphincter problem, not an acid problem. You understand? So suppressing acid obviously is going to work, but you need acid. You can take Nexium and prostacyclines.
Suppressing acid will give you some temporary relief, but
because you don't have acid, you're not going to nothing's to splash back up. But you need acid. So now you're going to run high risks of osteoporosis and degenerative diseases, and there are people who do take Nexium and prostacyclin long term do run higher risks for degenerative diseases following the deficiencies in stomach acid, because you need stomach acid to break up your protein, you need stomach acid to absorb your B vitamins and your minerals. And so when you suppress your stomach acid, you're going to run deficient in other nutrients, which is it's a common theme with drugs. Yeah, you get this effect, but it comes along with this. Like that guy that came on about talking about how wonderful the GLP-1s were. Yeah, you might lose weight, but now we know that there's problems with your eyes, or problems with your intestine, or problems with your connective tissue. And that's the thing. That's the problem with pharmacotherapy.
Okay, you mentioned 3 things that I would like to touch on. Keely mentions bulimics have side effects in the esophagus because they are forcing themselves
throwing up
to toss their cookies. She said,
"Yes, toss their cookies."
Toss their cookie. But you mentioned a couple things, so I'm going to transition into a question from Green Bear on Rumble. And he said, I need the last word on the issue of vitamin D supplements, vitamin K, magnesium, and other cofactors to ensure that it drives calcium into the bone instead of the soft tissue?
No, that's not how it works. Keep your blood pH alkaline. That's how it works. You can't supplement your way. I mean, supplements can help, but if you're acidic, which many people are from running, from being toxic, from stress, from inflammations, cell death, all of these can lead to an overall case of low pH, low blood pH. The blood pH is very tightly controlled. And one of the things that happens when you're acidic is calcium will leach out of the bones into the blood, and then it will get deposited. Vitamin K can help for sure. Magnesium can help. D3 is important for absorption through the intestine of calcium, and probably into cells too. So all those are helpful, but the main reason why calcification occurs is from overall inflammation and acidity, blood acidity. And that's really what you want to focus on, because that's how we die. Calcification of the tissues following low blood pH is one of the ways it's a cause of mortality. Not to mention misery before you die, because it impairs heart function and brain function and pineal gland function and kidney function. And so, it has an overall anti-health effect, but then it will eventually kill you. It's not taking vitamin K that's the solution. That doesn't mean vitamin K is not important. It's very important, as is D and magnesium and I forget the other one.
Strontium and boron, and
they're all important. Yeah, they're all very important.
Right. But I guess what you're saying is, if you have a hole in your boat, no matter how many buckets
you could bail water, right, because
you
calcium,
gotta fix the blood pH so the blood is not pulling calcium from the bones.
Yeah, calcification or low blood pH is a survival issue. So the body has these mechanisms. You can't override that with vitamin D or magnesium. The body's doing what it needs to do to survive. So calcium is important for keeping the blood pH alkaline for survival reasons. You're not going to override that.
Mm-hmm. And then another question happens to be, you mentioned the gentleman that came on, and this might be a whole show for another day, but you mentioned the gentleman that came on and mentioned that he lost a lot of weight on a GLP-1 drug.
Yeah.
And we were at a seminar a couple weeks ago, and I encountered a number of people, at least 2 or 3, who had taken the GLP-1 and lost 40, 60 pounds.
Okay, and that happens.
What might be something that, now that they've gotten to that plateau, what might be something that we can offer them to wean them off of the drug, but continue to help them to move in the direction they want to go?
For weight loss, you're saying?
For weight loss or weight management, because once they stop the drug, apparently people will gain the weight back. So they're told not.
What's a good way to lose weight?
What's a good way to get off of the drug but maintain your healthier weight?
Sugar. GLP-1s work by supporting insulin. Insulin resistance happens when your insulin is being pumped out chronically at high levels. So sensitizing cells to insulin is the answer.
Fasting.
Well, fast is great, but just going low carb, right? Or low, reduce your intake of foods that spike insulin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, it's simple, but it's a little hard because we eat for mental reasons. Everybody does, including me, and that's hard to override.
So eating keto is what Becca's saying.
What's that?
Eating keto.
Keto's a good way. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
But the thing about keto is keto's a low calorie diet.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, calcium, to be clear, calcium is not necessarily alkalizing the blood. Calcium under conditions of extreme acidosis or chronic acidosis, minerals will help buffer the acid. That's not exactly alkalizing the blood. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like
lessen the corrosive effect of the acid.
Yes, exactly. It's not like a pH regulator. It's more of a protective mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't. It's a subtle point because and the same thing basically happened. But I don't want people to get the idea that calcium is alkalizing the blood as much as it's buffering the acids.
All right. Well, Becca, excuse me, Keely, did you have a question that you wanted to bring on? If so, now's your chance. And that is great information that you've given us so far, Pharmacist Ben, and I really appreciate that. Now to our next question. If Keely's not coming on, we were talking about some of the longevity products. And one of the products apparently had some safflower oil in our SmartFX. SmartFX
What did you tell me?
is
I'm not telling you about that.
SmartFX is another
capsule?
capsule, very small, another essential fatty acid type of.
Okay. Is the person asking about the safflower oil?
Yes, saying that. Why is there safflower oil? I was told that we shouldn't have oils, especially seed oils.
Seed oils are a problem. But when we're talking about nutritional oils, that's different than salad oil or French fry oil. Nutritional oil, first of all, is in a very small amount, drops of it. When you're dipping in French fries, you're immersing your foods in like a bubbling cauldron of safflower oil. It's not the same thing. Secondly, the amount of oil that you're getting in a capsule is partially vitamins, antioxidants. So you're getting the safflower oil not because you're getting oil. They're giving you the safflower oil not because they want to give you oil, but because it contains vitamin E or contains some kind of antioxidant substance. So the antioxidant is going to protect the oil, and it's in the capsule. It's in a gel cap, so it's further protected. It's not the same thing as cooking oil or salad oil, which is, poured on your salad or like I said, saturates a food. A food is immersed in, and it's hot. It's a completely different animal. You're getting a small amount. It's protected. It contains antioxidants. It's completely different.
Mm-hmm. What do you know anything about sodium benzoate?
Yeah. What about
is that a harmful preservative in our Osteo-fx?
In the scheme of things, it's a food grade preservative. So it's in the scheme of preservatives, no, it's not harmful. It's a very simple molecule, and when you have a liquid nutritional supplement that is good for you, it's also good for bacteria. So you got to have some kind of preservative in there. And sodium benzoate is that. It's a very, very mild preservative. Mm-hmm. It's not.
But we do encounter people who will look at the ingredients. They'll grab a Tangy Tangerine, right? Yeah. And then they'll look and bypass all of the 1,000% of the good stuff and say, "Oh, it's got stevia.
I know.
I can't use it."
I know.
I mean, what do we say to these people?
I don't say anything. They're not our customers. That's fine.
Just let them be.
Let them be. Yeah, everybody gets to be.
And
I don't want to ever be in a position of having to persuade anybody. That's not, it's not in anybody's interest to be convinced or persuaded. This is a message for people who already believe this stuff. They just need guidance. I'm not here to persuade anybody. You don't understand how valuable Beyond Tangy Tangerine is, or any nutritional supplement program is. That's your business. I'm not, I'm not mad or I don't care. It's your business. Let everybody be. This is a message for people who understand the power of nutritional supplementation already, but they want some guidance.
Mm-hmm. Keely is asking a question on polypharmacy. On what drugs have studies been conducted on the effects of using 2 or more drugs?
They don't do that. Nobody does that. But they don't do polypharmacy tests. They test the single drug, and that's important because some people are on 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different drugs. It's not unusual for somebody to have a heart transplant, or not transplant, but a heart bypass, and come home on 7 drugs that they've never taken before. I have a lot of friends who've that. It's happened to a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it's never been done, but you can just use your imagination and see if one drug is going to be a problem. Taking polypharmacy, which means multiple drugs, is going to be exponentially more of a problem. Not additive, but exponentially more problematic.
What do you think about the benefits of donating blood? Is it safe?
Oh, yeah.
I have donated blood when I was a tree hugger in my youth. I don't know about you, Ben. Have you ever donated blood?
I never don't. Oh, wait, I did donate blood a long time ago, but I haven't done it a lot. But yes, it's definitely good. It can help thin the blood. It can help lower excess iron. If you deal with excess iron, iron can be a pro-aging hormone. And the body replaces the donated plasma in a day probably, and then the red blood cells in a few weeks. So most people won't even notice it. It burns some calories actually, but it's definitely a good thing to do if you can handle it. It'll reduce your risks of cardiovascular disease, blood clotting, dirty blood, all the problems associated with dirty blood. It's definitely a good thing to do. Yes.
All right.
Especially if you have hemochromatosis or some kind of iron overload issue.
Huh. Because
yes,
it gets.
You lose iron. Iron comes out.
Okay. Houdini says, if my doctor says my vitamin D levels are too high and he wants me to cut back on a tangy tangerine.
Look, I can't help with silly things doctors say. Most vitamin D, your body has a mechanism for controlling vitamin D. It has to be activated in the liver and in the kidneys. So it's very difficult to take vitamin D orally and then all of a sudden have too much vitamin D activity. You may have vitamin D in the blood, but that doesn't mean it's active. That doesn't mean it's active in the cells. So you want to know what the vitamin D is in the cells. You want to know what your active vitamin D is. Because vitamin D is just taking vitamin D doesn't give you vitamin D effects. It has to be turned on, as I said, in the liver and kidneys.
Okay, Pharmacist Ben, we had gotten a question in about central diabetes insipidus. There was a gentleman, he said he was hit in the head with a shot put when he was about 16. And now that he's 60, he's still having trouble. And all of the medical system wants to give him drugs as if he's got normal diabetes. I'm not really sure with the central diabetes insipidus, but I'll read.
It's not a sugar issue. It's not a sugar issue. Okay. Diabetes insipidus is a brain issue. It has to do with a brain chemical called antidiuretic hormone. Sometimes people say vasopressin. This antidiuretic hormone, diuresis means what? To lose water, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Antidiuretic hormone keeps you from losing water, right? So people who have diabetes insipidus, it's a tumor, or sometimes it's an injury like this guy had. There's various things that cause it, but it's a brain problem, really, not a pancreatic issue, not a sugar issue, and it has to do with drinking, with fluid accumulation. People who have diabetes insipidus, central diabetes insipidus, which is a form of diabetes that affects the brain rather than the pancreas, have problems with fluid accumulation. So there's different things you could do if you're dealing with a diet. It's not going to really be a something that you can control with diabetes medicine because it's not pancreatic. What you can do is you can increase your ADH. That's one thing you could do, your antidiuretic hormone, right? Which would stimulate water retention mechanisms. And by the way, people who have diabetes insipidus drink a lot of water. That's
what about fixing his pituitary gland? Is there something that we can do for that?
Not if it's been damaged. People have diabetes insipidus, as they say, central just means it's the brain, the central nervous system is causing it. Diabetes insipidus, people with diabetes insipidus causes the fluids to become out of balance because you're not making antidiuretic hormone, you're not making ADH. Turns out a little bit of fructose can stimulate ADH. And even though they sound the same, it's a completely different thing. Does that make sense? You follow what I'm saying?
What sounds the same? Diabetes?
Yeah, they both sound like the same thing. Mm-hmm. Diabetes insipidus is very rare. The body will make a lot of urine. It'll also cause a feeling of being very thirsty, even after you had something to drink. You follow me?
Yes.
And there's no cure for it. So typically, if you have that, and it's really rare. I haven't really dealt with it too much, but there are nutrients that you can use. Like I said, fructose can help stimulate ADH. I don't really know of any nutritional treatments for it though, because it's a mechanical injury. So if you know, the symptoms of it are thirst basically, and making lots of urine, and getting up in the middle of the night to urinate a lot.
Okay, but Pharmacist Ben, you kind of just indicated that you don't think that we could repair the pituitary gland.
Not if it's been mechanically damaged. It's not metabolically damaged.
Okay, but a week or two ago, we saw someone who got a finger cut off.
Yeah, the pituitary is not the same thing as the finger. The extremities sometimes can regenerate, but the structures inside the body, that's not as likely. Think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. You would lose your fingers not infrequently because you're out hunting. So it's easier to regenerate extremities than it is. I don't know. I think it might be possible. I just don't know.
The liver is internal.
The liver regenerates. Yeah, there are parts of the body that regenerate. That's true. Pituitary, I don't know if that's.
Who would the hell believe that somebody would regrow a finger? No one would ever believe that.
Hey, no, your point that's a very good point, by the way, AJ. I don't mean to marginalize that. I'll tell you why. Because when this gentleman has diabetes insipidus, he's focusing on his brain, on his pituitary. But as you point out accurately, by changing your entire nutritional milieu, your biochemical milieu, the environment, your biochemical environment, you may be able to counteract those kinds of things. That's how I would be approaching it. I wouldn't be focusing on, remember, the root, not the fruit, right? I wouldn't be focusing on the fruit. I'd be focusing on the entire system and trying to make the entire system healthy. I'm not saying necessarily that these things are going to regenerate your pituitary, but that's what you want to do when you have something.
I mean, look, at this point, if you did nothing but flood yourself with nutrients, it's a benefit, regardless of
always going to help you.
It's a benefit.
Absolutely. And in the case of ADH or antidiuretic hormone issues, where you're not responsive to antidiuresis and you're losing a lot of fluid, there are some strategies that you might want to employ. Like I said,
so two people, Yvonne and Keely, are both mentioning this book, The Salamander in the Body Electric.
Yes.
Becker.
Yes, that's exactly. Robert Becker showed that in a salamander, anyway, a salamander is I say a lower animal, an animal that's not evolved. They can regenerate limbs, absolutely, by using electrical stimulation. And it may be that we can regenerate limbs. Limb regeneration is not the same thing as organ regeneration. And Becker did regenerate limbs. That is absolutely correct.
By the way, I had a buddy who got his doctoral thesis at Columbia injected an alligator, or which ones are on this continent? We got alligators or crocs?
Crocodiles are South America. We have alligators.
Okay, so he injected the alligator with. They wanted to find out if they could survive a nuclear blast, so they injected it with radiation, and the all the radiation went to the tail. It shed the tail and grew a new tail.
Yeah, I've heard reptiles are notorious for regenerating limbs. Reptiles are. As I said, lower animals lower in the evolutionary scale, they regenerate limbs. That's a known fact. And even babies sometimes regenerate limbs. As we get older, we lose that ability. But Becker showed that it's possible and he showed it's possible by manipulating electrical fields, not nutrition. Electricity. Becker, that's what the body electric is about. Great book, classic book.
Isn't nutrition electric?
Secondarily.
Okay.
You know, the electricity is literal.
I know what you meant.
Yeah.
I know what you meant.
And then, but it is, yes, you're right, it is electrical. For the guy with the diabetes insipidus, sodium, salt, they could say cause of water retention. That may work in your favor if you're losing water because you're not responsive to ADH.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So electrolytes, salt in particular, sodium chloride.
Mark on YouTube has had a miraculous regrowth. He mentions how he regrew his love handles.
Yes, it's well known that love handles will regenerate. I've experienced that myself. Mark. You and I both.
So Texas Hill chopped off his toe, and they sewed it back on.
Yeah, they can sew things back on. You ever remember Bobbitt? John Wayne Bobbitt?
John Wayne. Oh yeah, that's just too famous. But back to the vitamin D. Houdini mentioned that the doctor says his vitamin D level is so high that they can't get a reading. And then, I don't know, I'm at 120 milliliters. And here's the kicker. The calcium's normal, protein's normal.
That's because that's what I'm saying. If everything's normal, but your vitamin D is high, that's because the body has mechanisms for protecting itself from vitamin D overdose. Or vitamin D is a hormone. So the body has to protect itself. And the way it protects itself is by activation in the liver and kidney. So maybe your body's not activating, maybe you have a high vitamin D in the blood, but maybe it's not activated vitamin D because your body's not activating it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, and Yvonne, Yvonne's all about the electrical. Yvonne uses electrical tools, physical electrical tools, to break up scar tissue and get the electricity flowing throughout the body. So she uses that in combination with our Mighty 90 to have drastic effects on people. And that is about it. Unless there's a crucial question coming in, I just want to ask Pharmacist Ben, what do you think that we should be telling the people before we depart and end another amazing episode of Pharmacist Ben?
If you do supplementation correctly, there's no way it's not going to improve your life if you do it correctly, but you got to do it correctly. You have to know how to do it. And don't get your nutritional information from Instagram or Facebook.
All right. If everybody, keeps that in mind. Oh, iodine question.
Okay.
What was the iodine question?
Iodine's amazing stuff.
I've been putting, I don't know if you can see this. I've been putting 2% potassium iodide liquid, 2 drops on my throat topically. Is there any problem with doing that? My hair is darker and getting thicker.
Say that again, putting iodine on the scalp?
Potassium iodide liquid, 2 drops on my throat topically.
Well, it's probably good for she's probably using it for thyroid hormone, I would assume.
Is there any problem?
No, there's no problem with that.
Judith,
I don't know how much better it's going to be than just taking it orally.
Napster Freak, is that Lugol solution you're referring to? Is that what the potassium iodide is? I did see Lugol's Lugol solution a couple weeks ago.
Lugol's is great, and there's also an oral tablet version called iodoral.
Mm-hmm.
But Lugol's doesn't taste very good. That's the problem with Lugol's solution.
I was looking at another Facebook post, and there was a guy talking about iodine deficiency being the cause of tumors throughout the body.
That's not a bad guess, because iodine is important for glands, the breasts, the adrenals, the pancreas, the thyroid, and so I can see how deficiencies can be associated with cancers of the breast. They are associated with breast cancer. I know that, or at least with fibroids of the breast. So iodine is one of the most important minerals for women for that reason. Also, iodine deficiency is one of the major causes of mental retardation and cretinism in kids. It's very important for developing brain, for developing fetal brain development. Probably has something to do with the thyroid. But iodine deficiency is not uncommon, because iodine is not really found in terrestrial plants. It's not in the earth. It's an ocean mineral. So if you're not eating a lot of seafood, or you're not supplementing, or you don't live in an area where there's seafood, where it's easy to get seafood, those are the people who suffer from iodine deficiency. And iodine deficiency can cause all kinds of health problems, for sure, including mental health problems and weight gain issues, for that matter, because of the hypothyroidism. Eat your cruciferous. Not cruciferous vegetables. Eat
seaweed.
Seaweed, yes.
Seaweed.
Exactly.
What about
FucoidZ? What's that?
What about FucoidZ?
FucoidZ is great.
Any iodine?
Yeah. There's probably a little iodine. It's brown algae. There are certain foods, cruciferous vegetables, are famous for being interfering with iodine uptake, but you have to eat a lot of them. You have to eat huge quantities for that to happen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on Rumble, Wyoming Annie, Green Bear, Bruce. Thank you for being on, and on YouTube, folks who have mentioned that they're on Texas Hill, and Houdini, and Mark, and Napster Freak, and everyone else who's on with us, Yvonne, and Judith. Judith, if we haven't answered your question totally well, please email us at questions@dailywithdoc.com. Actually, you can even email us at help@rootnotfruit.com, as we do have that email up and running now. And Kyle, thank you for tuning in, and everyone else. And Bootsy Girl, I know that is our good friend. Who is Bootsy Girl? That is I know she's a health coach, and but at any Leslie, it's Leslie, and in it together health and Pharmacist Ben, I appreciate you taking the time out and the extra time to do so many shows per week, and tell the people the other shows that you are doing. I know you're doing
Coast to Coast next week, or the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks. What's it? Dr. Drew's on tomorrow.
Say again?
Dr. Drew is on tomorrow.
Oh, Dr. Drew's on tomorrow, is he? Then I guess I'm on in 3 weeks. Really?
Yeah. Dr. Drew's on tomorrow. But then what about you doing a show with Dave Michaels?
Oh yeah, I do a show with Dave Michaels, but I'm also doing we're doing audios for all the products. We're going to have product education on every single product.
Who are you doing that with?
Dave Michaels.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm a little jealous. What about my product education?
Well, this is going to be in a paywall. it's going to be $5 a month. $5 a month, and you
well, I'm going to charge $7 a month. What do you do?
Right. You can do that. I'll do that. I'll do that with you.
Okay, but and then I know that you did Saturday. People were asking me about a replay.
How did that go? I never heard how that went. Did you hear how that went?
I guess it went well, but because people kept emailing me asking me, "Can I get a replay?" I'm like, I don't think they record that.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about the clinic that we did in Mexico, because I left early.
So
I didn't really hear about it. Rebecca said it went okay though.
Yeah, it was fantastic. You know why it was fantastic?
No.
Well, it was fantastic because you were there.
No.